is first breakfast. This is what I call my first breakfast. What you're going to need is warm water, not boiling water, just warm enough. You don't want to destroy the honey. Your next ingredient, I'm going to do some honey, a teaspoon or so, it's up to you. Honey is excellent for your immune system, especially when you take it locally. Because your local honey will have been made from bees who harvest the local pollen, which means that if you have seasonal allergies to the local pollen, you will be exposed to that local pollen through the honey in a mild way. It will stimulate your immune system to that pollen, and you will have a natural boost to your immunity because of it. And besides, honey is natural, it's all good, it's the food of the gods, and it is the basis of this delicious mixture. So let's just mix that in there a little bit. Next, cinnamon to taste. That's up to you and your own tolerance levels. You'll get to know how much you like to take. Cinnamon is good for you. It's a natural spice. It's good for the blood. Next is going to be half a lemon. And finally, some olive oil. Now I keep 2 bottles of olive oil in my kitchen going all the time. One for flavor, this nice, beautiful, light-tasting olive oil. And I built up my olive oil stock over the years by buying it on sale, rotating it through. Whenever there's some nice, light olive oil for sale, I buy it and refill the bottle. Okay, now we will blend it. And voila, first breakfast. Beautiful immune boosting boost. Boosting boost. And of course, you've got some olive oil in there, so that's some beautiful protein to get your day going. All right. Well, as you can tell, I made this first thing in the morning and I'm a little tired, but this will get my day going. This has been First Breakfast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. second breakfast. This is the second breakfast I have pretty well every morning. It really is very healthy and very simple to make. And I especially like it in the summer because it also helps for dealing with my weeds. Obviously, these are boiled eggs. I prefer my boiled eggs to be boiled for 7 minutes. That gives me a nice soft boiled egg, because I like my eggs runny. Now, once the eggs are boiled, I quickly give them a cool down in some water and peel them, and then I will put them with a little bit of butter and toss them in the butter, and then put some pepper, cracked pepper, and a bit of salt for flavor. The salt is up to you. And some turmeric powder. The turmeric powder, along with the cracked pepper and a fat medium, a healthy fat medium, together activates these three items to give you a really good healthy benefit. Especially the curcumin in the turmeric needs the fat and the black pepper together to give you the full health effect. Now, of course, I have this with a black cup of coffee, and for some reason, the taste combination of the turmeric, the black pepper, a pinch of salt, and the butter, and the eggs, the runny eggs, and the black coffee all together is just absolutely sensational. Coffee, that is, if you can still afford it at today's prices. So, whenever I do boiled eggs, I have these handy things that I found. There's various different types that you can find out there. These little basket holders for your eggs. You don't need to use them, they're just very handy. Now, I find if I get my water up to boiling, hard boil, sometimes you will get some eggs, especially if you're buying large eggs that are basically the cheapest ones you can find on the shelves. They have some additional little subsurface cracks in them. And in order to keep your eggs from cracking from the subsurface heat, what I will often do is, just as I start seeing some bubbling action happen in my water, I'll just remove it from the heat and let it chill down just for a couple of seconds. You can pretty well tell. I mean, if you had a rolling boil, you might have to wait 15-20 seconds or so. But that's just, you know, if you don't mind getting your water dirty and all full of eggs and runny eggs and stuff. So here we go. Oh, there we go. We didn't actually break our eggs in the boiling water. Excellent. So now we'll just let that boil. The rest of this boiled water to kill some weeds and other places I don't want stuff growing in my garden or on my property. It's a freaking easy way to get rid of your weeds. All right. Now, the easiest way to stop the cooking process is to change the temperature. Just drop it down in some non-boiling water. Too hot. And that is it. Second breakfast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
We on? Are we, yes, we are. Welcome. Welcome to Second Breakfast, a stream of consciousness that fills part of the gap between the no answer period and Blazing Cat for Fridays, where we stream on three platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. So please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, share, and subscribe. Most of all, the chat is up across all three platforms. So please feel free to ask anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I am not driving it down with my forbidden words. This veteran appreciates your support. Please visit my channels and share. I hope you have already been having a wonderful morning and are ready to face the day with hope and love of your fellow man. As always, we like to start off our second breakfasts with thanking our higher power for our life and for our health, for our wealth. It is our wealth in the connections that we have within our society and our family and our friends. Never forget to always pray for others, not just the ones you love, but the ones that you don't, because it will help you as it will help themselves. And after that, ask for help. Ask your higher power to get through the day, to help you with whatever it is you need to get done. But never ask your higher power for material things, only for what they can do for you to give you strength to get through the day. Well, let's get on to the story. So the topic of today's podcast, of course, is the unfortunate demise of deployed members of the Canadian Armed Forces. As you may or may not know, I am a retired member of the Canadian Armed Forces. I was forced to release during the COVID stupidity in 2022 because I refused to take the experimental injection because it was obvious that it was experimental, it was injurious, it was deadly, and all aspects that we tried to get some common sense going in this forced injection was to no avail. And so right now, this injection stands at, we have it, yes, we hear right here. So it is still required when members go on deployment. This CDS Directive 003 on CAF COVID-19 vaccination for operations and readiness. And when you deploy, there are a series of things that you need to accomplish in order to be deployable. You have to be up to date on your whatever level it is of accomplishment that you need for that particular deployment. So you will need to have a certain skill set achieved in operating your own personal weapon and other types of things like going to the gas huts, getting that NBCW qualification under your belt. Your medicals need to be up to date, which means your vaccinations need to be up to date, as well as whatever authorizations and qualifications you need for that deployment. You might have, obviously your first aid has to be up to date. And everyone on the deployment has a special skill set that is required to make that mission viable. And some of those positions are backfilled on site with one or two or three people that have that same skill set. But it's getting harder and harder to fill these. We call these deployments bricks because it's basically a grid where you have a series of positions, and at the top you will have a bunch of qualifications, and then each of those persons that are selected in those positions in that grid is part of the brick, and they have to make sure that they meet those levels of requirement for their position. And of course, like I said, it is required to get your vaccines to be up to date. And unfortunately, because of this directive, when you go all the way down to the bottom, Annex A says right here, they will receive 3 doses of any COVID-19 vaccine, regardless if they are HC authorized vaccines or non HC authorized vaccines. So it's all about getting it into your arm, really. Even though plenty of evidence out there saying, that it didn't stop transmission, it didn't stop infection, but yet it is still required. Now let's look. Who did we lose? Well, we've lost 4 people, according to them, on these deployments. We know that other people have been injured and released. We know that other people have expired, maybe not on deployment. Maybe they are. We just cannot trust any information really that is coming out of the Liberal government because they constantly gaslight and work in darkness. Plenty of examples, especially this year with Mark Carney saying that he has given instruction, a Privy Council order, that all emails older than 30 days shall be deleted. Chats older than 15 days shall be deleted. The last election occurred because the government refused to hand over unredacted pages, over 5,000 pages of documents, prove their complicity in fraud, in stealing money from the treasury. But still, Canadians voted them back in because, the mainstream media controls the minds of most of these El Bozos out there. And that's why when they see this little story, it comes and it passes and nobody really looks into it. Well, let's go to the oldest death here. Master Warrant Officer Guy Law, a non-operational death while posted to the Canadian Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan. This is after the rollout. That means these people would have had to take their jabs in order to stay out there on deployment. And when they say non-operational death, you'll never find out. You'll never find out what it was that actually killed them, unless, of course, the family comes out and says something. But posted at the Canadian Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan, a non-operational death. What? How do they expire? How are we supposed to protect our troops from going on future deployments? Now, everyone gets pre-deployment briefs, and mental health, of course, has always been something that we have been, well, we used to be actively participating in as supervisors in the military, because especially of the lessons learned from how poorly people were dealt with after Bosnia. And of course, you had people in combat in Afghanistan and around those activities of combats, like myself. And you don't come back the same, you come back different, and you need to deal with these things every day. And we have to wonder, with all these tools and all these things that are supposed to be capturing, if somebody might have an issue before they deploy. And I'm sure not everybody is honest because they want to go on deployment. Well, why were these persons out there? Now, what was happening at this particular time? Well, let's not forget that CDS Directive 002 was out, and it was basically, well, sorry, it was just about to come out. CDS Directive 001 was already there. It was telling people to register. Now, from this date here, from March of 2021 on through to the end of the year, the vaccines were being fully implemented. I remember back in June to July of that year, members in our squadron were going out and getting their jabs, even though it wasn't mandatory yet. And then, of course, by this fall that year, it did become mandatory. And people that weren't doing it, well, they were pulled off deployments. They were pulled off operations, which means this guy here, this master officer, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to show all his troops that, hey, look, it's safe for me. It must be safe for you in order to stay on deployment. And of course, they're saying, well, you're just assuming you got the jab. Well, guess what? We were all second class citizens if we didn't get it. So I'm going to go on and talking about this thing until the day I die, until we get some justice in regards to why we were being coerced into taking this to keep our jobs and why these guys are still being coerced to take it to keep their jobs when we know they are very dangerous. And we will cover some of that right after I go through these names. Captain Aaron Weidman, October 2024, died while off duty in Riga, Latvia. He was serving as part of the Latvian Allied Augmentation Team. He had previously served in Ukraine under Operation Unifer, Canadian Military Family Magazine says. So October 2024, young captain, why are they suddenly expiring? Again, this particular death here, non-operational, we don't know. We don't know what killed him. It's a mystery. People are dying suddenly, and it's a mystery. This is not right. We have Canadian Armed Forces members expiring overseas, and they won't tell us what they died of? What are they hiding? Warrant Officer George Hull, September 2025. He committed suicide. He's not the only warrant officer. He's not the only senior NCO that I've known that has committed suicide. Now, he was at 408 Tactical Helicopter Squadron. I spent close to 11 years in TACHEL, both times at 427 Tactical Helicopter Squadron out of Petawawa. I had the opportunity to work with the 408 guys many times on deployments, on exercises, interacted with them on and off in different courses as we moved throughout the country. And the 408 has always had a bit of a reputation for, let's just say, in the past, having lesser morale than the other squadrons. But who knows what would have happened at this time? And I found that during the last decade that I was in, when it came to morale, morale was plummeting everywhere because of who was in charge of the military, and that would be the Liberal Party. So why did Warren Officer take his life? Why did this Warren Officer take his life overseas? Well, we do know that lipid nanoparticles encapsulating the spike proteins, right, are known to cross the blood-brain barrier. And there has been some psychological issues from people that have been injected. They know that it does cause some cognitive issues. And of course, at this time here, he would have known by now that, and it's at this time here in September of this past year, Canadian soldiers have already been under orders not to discuss their COVID-19 vaccine injuries because they don't want vaccine hesitancy to occur. I mean, it's still required to go on deployment. Can't say anything nasty about that. So you got a lot of people that are conflicted ethically in their heads that on one side they have to follow the command directive, and on the other hand, they know what they're doing is unethical to the troops. Maybe that is why this man was one last straw things that took his life. We don't know. But we do know that these members on deployment over the past couple of years under the Liberal government have not been treated well as well. The equipment shortfalls, food shortfalls. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting how the Liberal Party has been destroying the Canadian Armed Forces, treating them. And in my 38 years that I spent in the Canadian Armed Forces, I have to tell you that every time the Liberals were in charge, we were out there in a training area saying with our mouths, bang, bang, budget cut, budget cut. Because we didn't have any blank ammunition to train with. Because they're cheap buggers that enrich themselves and make everyone else suffer. And now this time we have an additional level of suffering, and that would be this strange inoculation and all these strange and sudden deaths. And now we have Gunner Sebastian Amalkin, who died again near Riga, Latvia, while deployed on Operation Reassurance, originally from Hamilton, Ontario, and based at CFP Gagetown. This was his first overseas deployment. Young lad. And how does this young lad die suddenly? Really? I mean, you have to wonder, right? And of course, they're saying it's, they're investigating, and what are they going to come out with? We're not going to find out what it was, unless it was a criminal activity, which it's very, very rare that such things happen with our members on deployment. A little more savvy than most people. What are they going to say? Non-operational, and then we'll never find out what it is. What is killing our members overseas that has nothing to do with their operation? Why can't we keep our soldiers safe? It's not right. Well, let's get to this information I was talking about. That's not the one. Here we go, right there.
And I want to go over two massive studies that kind of just throw the whole safe and effective narrative out of the water. So the two largest COVID vaccine safety studies ever conducted, the first one's by Fuxova and colleagues. This had 99 million people in it. They found 500% increased risks of myocarditis, 300% increased risks of spinal cord inflammation, which can be permanently disabling. It can cause paralysis, and about 200.
It was transverse myelitis?
Yes, transverse myelitis. Yeah. And so we have all these things. Yeah. And then we have the second largest vaccine safety study ever conducted, which was published a few weeks ago. That had 85 million people in it and had a control group So it was about 40 million vaccinated, 40 million weren't. It was a meta-analysis. They found 300% increased risks of heart attack. They found 200% increased risks of arrhythmias. They found about 250% increased risks of stroke. And so now we have the largest population sizes ever studied that were vaccinated, and we find these massive risks.
So we wonder when our members overseas expire suddenly and they're forced to take 3 jabs, that, perhaps it has something to do with this. I mean, we look at the data, we look at the studies, and what's Health Canada doing? Nothing. We can't even find out who authorized it. Rebel News did a piece on trying to find out who authorized this injection. Nada, nothing, nobody. My last position in the Canadian Armed Forces was as a senior aircraft maintenance superintendent or supervisor, depending on which policy book that you read. But basically, it was a position that I worked my entire career towards achieving. You're pretty well the person who interviews people and gives them their next level of authorizations and certifications to work on aircraft and aircraft components. And that's because in aviation, in airworthiness, everything is accountable. Everyone is served. Everything that they do is certified. And the people that get to do the certification, they have to pass interviews in order to get those. And the people giving the interviews, well, they have to do interviews themselves in order to achieve those positions. And everyone is interviewed from the top down, and everyone is certified, everyone is authorized. And if something goes wrong and goes sideways, then there are mechanisms in there to look at the people that certified and authorized those particular things and decide whether or not those certifications and authorizations need to be reviewed, because there's a feedback mechanism, which is plane crash, death, let's not do that, and let's learn from that mistake. But apparently we don't do that in the medical field when it comes to pharmacies. In fact, we can't even find out who certified the vaccine for Canadians to put in their body. The government will not say whatsoever. Why? Because as usual, the government, in this case here, runs itself like a criminal organization that never answers questions, doesn't have to answer question, continues to hide its material, is now actively deleting its history, and we will never ever find out who authorized this, except that the entire political organization of the Liberal Party is now responsible for this. They're all going to point fingers to each other and go, oh, you can't prove nothing. Well, sorry, guys, you were in charge, and people died. And people are still dying today. And we're wondering, what are you hiding? Why can't you tell us the truth? Well, let's listen to this next fella here.
1% of the cells of your DNA that gets replicated stretches from here to the sun 4 times, if you were to line it up end by end. That's very hard to conceptualize. But it should give you a little bit of humility before you go and start monkeying with it with these vaccines that can actually alter your DNA. And that's what I'm going to show you, is that the vaccines had a DNA contamination in them they didn't tell you about that could, in fact, alter your genome. All right, these people are vibe coding your genome. And this is a major attack surface to the human gene pool, because if this thing starts to alter the lifespan of people, it's going to part you with your Bitcoin. You're going to end up spending money in a fiat system that has no controls, has no liability, and ends up oftentimes inducing mandates to get what it wants done. Many people have gone and replicated this work. It happened on Twitter. It did not happen very quickly in the peer review system. The peer review system kind of kicked it out. Some of these papers have now been peer reviewed, but it took years for them to come to this conclusion. Now, the FDA, the EMA, and the TGA have all admitted that this mistake has happened. How did it happen? There was a big bait and switch. Pfizer actually ran the trial of 22,000 people on the process on the left, and after they got through the trial, they then switched to the process on the right and didn't retrial the drug. And in doing so, they left a tremendous amount of excess DNA behind in the product. So all of the vaccine efficiency numbers you've heard in the news are flawed, they're not real, because that's not what actually went into the trial. What went to the public was actually something that came out of this process too. It's published now in the BMJ that this fraud happened, and no one has yet been prosecuted for it. So what did they leave in there? What they left in there was something we know from the polio scandal. If you're not familiar with the polio scandal, the polio vaccines were also contaminated with something known as SV40, and it created a massive cancer wave. Now, the whole virus isn't in these vaccines, but there is a very curious part of this called the SV40 region that Pfizer intentionally removed from the disclosure that they gave to the FDA. So the FDA has admitted that this SV40 material is in there. They did not spell this out to the regulators. The regulators did not find them, and they're actually running cover for them, saying this DNA is too little consequence to matter, it's too small, and it's not functional. But we know it's functional because Dean et al. Has published that this piece of DNA drives DNA straight to the nucleus. It gets used in gene therapy vectors.
Now, in Canada, the Public Health Agency, or PHAC as they are known, Health Canada, or as I like to call them, Death Canada, or Death Care, they first came out and said, "Oh no, there's no DNA contamination. It's all lies. SV40 contamination not there." And then once it was proven that it was there, they had to come back out and say, "Oh, sorry about that. Don't worry. It's not cancer causing. Even though it is a cancer promoter, it's overblown. The risk is minimal." Yeah. Well, when you lie about what's in an injection that you coerced for people to take in order to keep their jobs, and then it comes out that you lied, and then it happens that people get injured and die, isn't that type of fraud called murder and willful injury? I mean, why are people still ignoring this? That's because, well, because of this, right? Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization controls all the media in Canada. 27 to 30 grand per year per employee is what these organizations are getting every single day. Sorry, every single day, every year, right? So they're subsidizing the people in the MSM. And if they don't carry the proper message that the vaccine continues to be safe, well, guess what? You don't get your QCJOCRA subsidy anymore. Yeah. So only the authorized mainstream media that carry water for the Liberal Party and all their lies and trying to hide all their crimes and injuries and misery against Canadians. It's all done through this and other legislation. And of course, some of them just willfully go along, right? Because they have no morals and ethics themselves. And this was never more apparent than what I discussed yesterday during the morning show, as was mentioned at the convention. And this is the clip. This is the clip here that CPAC decided to scrub from their site. Luckily, somebody videotaped it using their. And I just turned my mic off there. I was talking away because I was about to play this. The media is bragging. The media is bragging away that they are in the tank for liberals. Let's listen.
And Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know that you have ours.
180,000 propagandists willingly promoting the message of the Prime Minister and the Liberals. He just said it. Just said it on TV. Now, I'm sure he's not speaking for all 180,000, but we do see the media bias is absolutely disgusting. And now, of course, people aren't aware the parliamentary press gallery will not allow independent media in there because it's controlled by the Liberals. And then we saw during the last debate that after the two prior elections refusing to allow independent media to ask questions at the scrums after the debates, the courts finally came out and said, you can't do that. You have to let them in. So during the last election, Elections Canada had to allow independent media in to ask questions. And the other media, they were like petulant little children. They lost their minds. They had tantrums. They screamed at them in the press room. They called them a bunch of names. They told them a bunch of things that weren't true. And this entire escapade was what was used by Election Canada to say, well, that's it. We're not having any more scrum after the debates because they can't control themselves. Uh, it wasn't the independent media, folks. It was the paid media, petulant little far left children who can't understand that there are other views out there other than their own. And the strangest thing is that this liberal media, they're not even trying to be objective. At least some of the independent medias will come out and say, yeah, we do have a bias and we're not hiding it. Right. So at least you know. But these liberal medias, they're trying to act like they're objective. And we know that they are not. And then they come out with a little statement like that. That's pretty sickening. Pretty sickening. Well, we're almost near the end. I think we will do a little more here on some of the vaccine background because it was another piece of information that should be handy. Now, if you didn't know this, there was a New Zealand person who had released a bunch of data that proved that the New Zealand government was lying to its citizens about the safety of the ID. And of course, because he released this data, they arrested him and put him in jail. And this is a little video of it here. Now remember, this data is not exclusive only to New Zealand. This same COVIDity stupidity was being pushed across all Western nations. The nations that did not get the jab did not have the spike in excess death rates that followed after the mass injections in Western nations. You look at Haiti. Haiti didn't have a sudden spike in deaths because of COVID. No, you know why? Because they didn't get the vaccine. All right.
So what I did with the data was look at the top 10 batches that had a high death count, a high mortality rate, and I put them on a chart, which you can see up there. So it's got a batch ID. So what I did was our internal batch ID. I counted the number of vaccinated within that batch, and then I found out who was dead.
Wow, let's have a look.
And so we then look at the percentage of the ratio.
So do we know if these are all Pfizer, the top 10?
Yes, they are.
And this is Pfizer's batch number 1. We've had 711 from batch number 1 vaccinated. 152 of those died, which makes a 21%
Percentage, yeah.
death
That's the
rate.
mortality rate from that
Mortality
particular
rate.
batch.
They are high. Now, what's our normal that we would
It should
expect?
be underlying
0.75.
mortality rate, 0.75.
0.75.
Because these batches are against all age groups as well. It's not one particular batch for one particular age group, it's across all ages. So all the vaccination centres, whoever rocked up on the day, whatever age you were, and it would average out. It would all average out. So there's not one particular batch that points to one particular age group.
So looking as if batch number 8, the second one, 221 jabbed, 38 dead. That's a 17% mortality rate.
Yeah.
Batch number 3 here, and we've got 48 out of 310, so that's a 15%. And if we go right down, in the top 10, batch 71, 11,000 vaccinated with batch number 71, 498 dead, and that's a 4%. Now you say down the bottom on the screen, could you just tell us what this is saying? The chances of these batches not being a killer are 100 billion to 1. Explain that as a statistician.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the underlying mortality rate, and then you look at the ratio percentage here, the top one, the chances of that occurring naturally by chance is almost impossible. It cannot be due to chance. So statistically, what we're saying is that there is no chance that this vaccine is not a killer.
So with
So
the
we
100
would have
billion
to-
to 1, are you saying you'd have to
We
jab
would have to jab 100 billion people to get these statistics.
Wow.
And we've got 2.2 million on our system.
2.2 million Kiwis.
2.2 million Kiwis. And we would have had to have jabbed 100 billion of them to get these kind of results.
They knew early on how safety signals were there. I've released this information before. It's on my other videos on my site. Scoops Magoo is the one that actually posted the emails from Public Health of Canada that show that they knew that the vaccines were causing deaths, and they decided to do nothing about it, again, because they thought it would cause vaccine hesitancy. They have admitted to 488 vaccine deaths, over 10,000 injured. So far, there's another news release that they said, oh, yeah, well, we know that, I think they might even have that information in here. They know that it's causing these kinds of injuries. And yet people are just like, oh, why can't we just leave it in the, here it is right here. The government of Canada now admits over 10,000 Canadians were injured or killed by COVID vaccines. 10,000 Canadians. 10,000 Canadians. Imagine if we lost 10,000 troops overseas just like that. And people would be like, hey, what's going on? But no, and that's why I bring this up. Why are we losing troops overseas? And they're not telling us what they're dying of. And we know they've all been injected. Worldwide, the toll is in the millions when it comes to vaccine injuries and deaths. The evidence can no longer be hidden. So the strategy shifts, minimize the numbers, rewrite history, and claim we did our best, right? That's what they're trying to do. That's what they are trying to do. So the next time you see a Canadian Armed Forces member who's been announced that he's died non-operationally, or they're on the peace mission, or they're not in the war zone, and they're just like dropping like flies, you have to ask yourself, why aren't they reporting the ones that are dropping like flies at home? They're not. We don't know how many Canadian Armed Forces members have passed away. They just will not tell us. They've ordered their members to stay quiet about their own injuries. The Canadian Armed Forces won't recognize the COVID-19 vaccine injuries. The Veterans Affairs won't recognize the COVID-19 vaccine injuries. The Vaccine Injury Support Program that was established has failed and been taken over by the ministry, and we still don't know what's going on with that. We have people online that are injured, like Kayla, who's here on X, trying to raise money to live because the government, the Liberal government, has said, oh, well, you're too expensive to take care of now that we've forced you to take it. So how about MAID? How about medical assistance in dying instead? That's the humane way to go for us. That's how these National Socialist liberals rule. Yeah, that's how they roll. All right. Well, thank you so much. Join us this afternoon on the no answer period. We will do an outro with that intro for the show, just to let you know what it's about. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9 for another second breakfast. Thank you all for coming out. Please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And we're still trying to raise the amount of people in our channel. And we will see you next time. And like I said, for the outro is the intro for this afternoon's show, and we will see you there or not. See you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, Penthouse Boomer, maybe you can share one of your homes. Says that at the end of the month, Gen Z has just $16 left to spend. The Prime Minister told young Canadians what his solution was for them: sacrifice more.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
No, that this government has their back.
driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Every week, I hear from young Canadians priced out of their neighborhoods. In fact, the Missing Middle Initiative reports that half of young Canadians will have to leave the very community in which they grow up in. But you know what I don't hear? I don't hear very much from the 4 youngest Liberal members of Parliament, all born this century, all who represent parts of Canada hardest hit by housing unaffordability. Brampton, Mississauga, Greater Vancouver, Greater Montreal. Well, Canadians haven't given up on the dream of home ownership, and I haven't either. So will any one of those 4 members stand up and help the government get out of the way, remove the taxes and red tape that are stealing their dreams?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I will say the members on this side, young Canadians who represent their ridings here in this House, certainly speak to me about their priorities.
Here's London MP Ariel Kayabega.
I'm 32 years old. I haven't been able to purchase a home. I came here to this country as a refugee. I've been a single mom for the last 14 years.
And they're here taking action to deliver for fellow young Canadians. We have the first-time home buyers tax coming through that will deliver up to $50,000 to young Canadians for their first home purchases. We're seeing positive trends across the country now with rents declining as well for the last 12 months. That's good for young Canadians. We're delivering groceries and essential benefit. Young Canadians will benefit from that as well. Mr. Speaker, this side of the House is delivering for young Canadians.
You stated that the $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund that I referred to was incorrect. You have given $4.4 billion without addressing this, and no homes have been built. Isn't that correct, Minister?
No, that's not correct.
But that's actually on page 45 of the budget. How many houses has been built as a result of that $4 billion that you referenced?
The specific funding leads to systemic changes that will have an impact over time. The communities that we've partnered with have indicated that over the next decade, they expect an increase in building permits issued of 750,000 across Canada.
Your government's goal is 3.9 million homes in 2031. That's 1.096 homes must be built every minute. That's 65 homes per hour. We've been here just over 30 minutes. Has your government built 32 homes in the last 32 minutes?
The Honourable Member for York Durham.
Okay, Penthouse Boomer, maybe you can share one of your homes.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Housing Minister says he doesn't want house prices to go down. While everyday Canadians are priced out of a home, he says he's focused on protecting people's assets. Well, now we know why. From his Vancouver penthouse, this minister is sitting atop a personal real estate empire worth over $10 million, including luxury properties in Tofino, Squamish, and English Bay. Why is it the only thing getting built under this housing minister is his personal fortune? Liberals are just like atoms. They make up everything. More Canadians than ever are watching the dream of homeownership slip further out of reach. But this housing minister isn't focused on solving the housing crisis because he's profiting from it. The average home in Canada now costs $680,000, $1.2 million in Vancouver. Rents and mortgages doubled, housing starts are down, so why is the minister more interested in protecting his real estate empire than ensuring Canadians can afford a home?
No. I'll ask the member to restart and carry on.
Well, maybe the Minister of Housing can share one of his homes with the Canadians who don't have them. A study by Canadian fintech Coho Financial says that at the end of the month, Gen Z has just $16 left to spend. The Prime Minister told young Canadians what his solution was for them: sacrifice more. Well, there's nothing left to give. Coho says that Gen Z is in survival mode and therefore can't plan for their future. The Prime Minister claims he wants to work together, and we've offered him some solutions. So why won't he take any of them?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, instead of slagging generations, they should make generational investments with this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, we're focused on delivering for young Canadians. The other side of the House delayed all through the fall and into the winter on the first-time homebuyers tax break. This side of the House, we've been pushing to do this. The Conservatives did not vote for the first home savings account. These are tangible efforts we're making to support young Canadians. They're being opposed by the Conservatives.
How many homes has your government built in the last 30 minutes?
It's important to recognize that the government isn't the entity that is constructing the homes. We are putting incentives on the table to create the changes to the rules that make it easier to build home. We have funding on the table, but it's actually the private sector and nonprofits who build the homes, not the government.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.